Welcome back. Okay, so we have dipped our toes into the block controller, but half of the name of this class is and UCI. So let's pause on the block controller for a little bit. We're going to talk about UCI design, specifically using cascading style sheets in order to make your UCIs a little bit more beautiful and a little bit more easy to adapt and customize as you get larger and larger UCIs forward in your career. So when you start off designing UCIs, there's generally three ways you could go about this. You could use the native properties that are built into every single control. That's what you may naturally do, right? You drag a button onto the UCI, and then you click on it, you change its properties, you change its color, and you change its border, and you change its margins and its icon, et cetera, et cetera. You can do that. That's fine. And honestly, for smaller UCIs, that's probably the best way to go. You only have a couple of pages, a couple of layers. It's really easy. It's really intuitive. It's the way that you would design something if you were doing any other sort of graphic editing. That's great. However, for larger installations where you've got maybe a much more complicated UCI, or you've got lots of instances of these UCIs throughout the entire building, the problem with using the native properties is that it's really difficult to update when something needs to be changed. Let's say that the colors of the corporation have changed, or the font has changed, or the logo has changed, something like that. If you have to go through every single UCI and open up every single page and look through every single layer and change the font and change the color and do the whatever and swap out the logos, that could be a lot of work. Especially think about something like a stadium, right? Where you've got a UCI in every single box around the edge. It's a lot. If you use CSS, you can do that with just a couple lines of code. That's what we want to take you down on this path. Now, if you're using CSS, there's probably two different ways you're going to go. Option one is you're going to build your own CSS from scratch. And if you know CSS, that's certainly viable. In this case, for this class, we're going to assume that the client has already provided us with their CSS list, and we've already got that. It exists. We can adapt it and edit it a little bit if we need to, but generally speaking, we're just going to apply it. So this is not a CSS class. We could spend a lot of time in CSS if we really wanted to. Instead, I'm just going to show you how to install CSS, a little bit of how to read it and adapt it, and then we'll use that to our advantage later on.
Nate, if I could interrupt for just a minute. So those that are hyper aware of CSS, it's probably worth noting that the CSS that we use in Q-SYS is actually a subset of what you might find if you're a seasoned web designer and you have a full palette of tools that CSS can do. We have identified and installed a subset of those tools in Q-SYS.
Absolutely. And if you look in the help file, it'll tell you exactly what aspects of CSS you can use, what you can apply them to. There's a big list that'll talk you through the syntax of how to build it. So let's do a little bit ourselves, all right? So when you downloaded the assets for this class, part of the assets that you downloaded should have been these two style sheets right here. These folders called Control and UCI Training Series, Dark and Light. We gave you two different style sheets that you could apply as we go through building our UCI. We're going to copy those, so make sure you've copied those wherever they're at from your downloads folder, etc. I'll show you where to install them. Go to your Documents folder on your PC. Go to QSC. It's right here, right above Roblox, because I'm assuming you've also got an 8-year-old who lives on your laptop when he's not busy living in a drawer in your desk. Go to QSC, Q-SYS Designer, go on down to Styles, and paste them in here. Now, I already have a lot of folders in here. You may not have any, because the folders represent the style sheets that you have available to you. Every single one of these folders, the name of the folder is the name of the style sheet as you will find it inside of Q-SYS. So mine are called a collaboration experience for a project I did a while ago. Example CSS project. This name, the Control and UCI Training Series, that's what we want you to use. If you open up the folder itself, you'll see that it's got a file called style. It's a cascading style sheet. It's called style.css. That is true for every single possible style sheet. If I go into any of these folders, they're all going to be called style.css. So make sure that you've given the folder a name that you like for your style sheet, because the folder's name is how it is displayed inside Q-SYS. Let's actually open up one of our style sheets and just to give you a little bit of ground underneath your feet, this is what our style sheet looks like. It's not magic. It's just a text document. And if you scroll down through here, you can probably read it a little bit. At the very top of this particular one, we are creating a whole bunch of variables. And these variable names will reference throughout the rest of the style sheet. That way, if we decide later on, hey, this color of gray isn't dark enough, you can change it in one place in your style sheet rather than trying to find every single place you use that color later on. So good coding mentalities are applicable here inside your style sheets. And if you scroll down, you'll see, oh, well, here's the various things. Like here is a fader. There's lots of faders in Q-SYS. Every single fader in our design will be given these various properties. It'll be given a slot width of 15 pixels and a cap height of 35, etc. You can scroll down, you can see, oh, every single group box, we're assigning the background color of the variable we're using for secondary color, etc. Now, you can see that if you wanted to edit this, it's just a matter of going in, finding the type of object that you want to change, and then adapting its properties. Pretty straightforward. You got to make sure you get your syntax right, that you know where to put in your parentheses and your semicolons and things like that. But generally speaking, if you're a little bit savvy, it's not too tricky to come in here and edit things. I do want to point out that some of these objects that we can edit have a period in front of them. The ones that don't have a period, those are objects inside Q-SYS that have a native name, like a group box, a fader, a text field, things like that. You can choose to create classes. A class is your own custom name. So we've created a custom class called Group Box Control Area Outer. We create a custom name down here called .logo, etc. You can create any number of your custom classes and adapt something for that class. And then in the software, you'll see in just a little bit, you can choose what classes to apply to every single object and every single page. And if a parameter of a class overrides the parent parameters, then it'll take the class's parameters instead. So you can kind of give a blanket visual choice for all of your objects and then customize them later on by applying classes. That's kind of the goal we're going down. Okay, so let's jump back to our design. And if you go to your UCI, you click on your class UCI, you go over to the right-hand side. We skipped this earlier, the style. And right now it says none. And if you click on it, there's still nothing in there. Patrick, where is it? What happened to our style sheets? We already installed them. Why are they not here?
Oh, it's because you haven't put them in the folder. No?
You're just pulling out possible options.
Sorry, I was busy thinking of puns for Darth Faders.
Darth Vader?
Yeah, it's going to make it in there. Don't you worry.
All right, you've got like 10 minutes to think of Darth Fader
You're welcome.
puns. Okay, so the reason it's not here in your design already is because you very likely are including different images in your style sheets, like you're including logos and background images and things like that. And when you ship your system, you save the file and you give it to someone else, the style sheet goes with it. And you don't want to accidentally package every single style sheet's images in every single Q-SYS designer you're ever going to give out. That would bloat all of your files. You don't want that. You only want to include a style sheet that is intended for this particular design. And the way you do that is by going to Tools, and then go down to Show Design Resources. This is a list of all of the style sheets in that folder we saw previously. And you can choose which ones you want to install. When you install them, A, it makes it possible to apply them to any of your UCIs, and B, it then embeds all of that inside the file itself. So when you copy and paste it and you give this to someone else, all that comes with it. That's great. So find the two that we installed, Control and UCI Training Series, Dark and Light. Let's install both of those. Once you install them and you go to the Installed tab, you can see that, hey, there they are. I have access to the dark and the light version here. And if you click on one of them, you can actually even browse through what this particular style sheet does. This is not an editor window, so you can't come in here and change anything, but you can browse through if you want to figure out what the classes are and see what you might want to change later on. Now that we've installed them, now we can go back to our UCI, back to those properties, and let me make a little room so we can see this happen. Now I can choose which of these to apply. I'm going to apply the dark theme. And look at that. Instantly, our UCI now visually has taken on the properties we wanted from our style sheet.
And maybe if you applied that, you'd get a dark fader.
Did you?
Same.
Those are just the words that you said previously, but you just said them again.
In context.
Are they?
That was a total...
What's the context that you think that they're in?
I don't think you know what context means.
I feel like if you had like a line that Darth Vader said and it was applicable to designer, that would make sense. But you just said Darth Vader.
Nate, I am your fader.
That was better. That was better. Yeah, it kind of needs like an accent, you know, like because fader and fodder are very really close. Like if you have the right like.
Oh yes. So it should be like a Dutch Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Luke, I am your fader.
Okay, we went down the wrong path on that one. So let me wrap this up real quick. You may think to yourself, hey, if I am going to change this style sheet, as we very well may, then does that mean I need to reload it into my design? You just said that it gets kind of packaged up and saved in your system when you share it. Well, if I were to make a change in this style sheet, if I were to change one of these fields, maybe it's something really simple. I want to change the size of my fonts to 34, and then I save that. If I go back to the UCI, look at this. It says, hey, the control in UCI training series CSS has changed on the disk. Do you want to reload? Yes. It is always scanning that folder to know whether or not it has been updated. So if you make an update on your PC, you can choose to have that apply automatically in the software. So I'm going to say yes. And in fact, if you know you're going to do that, just go up to Tools and click Auto Update Styles. That way, every time you do make a change as you're editing things, you can see that change in real time on your UCI, and then you don't need to worry about re-importing it or anything like that. Let's take a pause right here. In the next section, we'll actually apply some of these classes. So take a quick break. We'll see you in a bit.